Have you ever wondered what games you should keep or you should lose? Find out here at Purge Review.
Today we're looking at Streets and Steel. We're going to be looking at the villains and the bosses. And I'm going to kind of rate them and talk a little bit about them, generally speaking. Now, there are two bosses in this game. You're going to have Boss Muty, which comes in the original box. And then you'll have Kimatazar, which comes in the expansion box. So there are only two bosses that you're going to have. So it's not a whole lot, but we're going to talk a little bit about them. So out of these two, I think Kimatazar is my second. She is a little bit easier to play against in my mind. She does a lot of moving the bad guys around, the minions around, and she brings them in to fight you. And she has this kind of Russian theme that's going throughout. The second one, I can remember, it was like Russian Attack was out at the time, which is a fun kind of beat 'em up that you were going through. And that was a big thing in the 80s, like fighting the Russians, and she is the Russian boss. So she will be my second favorite, a little bit easier. So if you wanted to start somewhere, I think I would start with her and then move on up. And that leaves the only other person left, which would be Boss Muty. Now, Boss Muty's a little tougher because he moves you back a lot. So when you're fighting the guys, you get your hit in. He's a 3 defense. I mean, they're exactly the same stats. The only difference is going to be the cards that you're playing. But he moves you back so many spaces. Now I got to fight my way back to him and become a little bit of a frustrating thing, especially there's a lot of baddies. So you can take your bumps and just run forward, or you can try to beat him up as you go and waste those actions. But when you get him, you need to smash both of them and you need to smash them hard, and Lady Luck will need to be on your side just a little bit. So only two bosses in the games, not a whole lot. I wish there was more, but that's kind of how I would rate the bosses. So let's move on to the villains. There are 6 villains in the game. I'm going to kind of rate them just based on how I like them, how strong they are, and what I think about them. So obviously there's level 1s, 2s, and 3s, but I'm not necessarily going to put them in that level. So my number 6 one is Commandroid. I'm not really into the army droid type things, and as a bad guy, he's tough, so he's a tank. You know, he's at level 3 for the Russian expansion. But he also has cars that move people on and do attacks on you. So I find him to be a little bit difficult to play, of course, because he's a level 3, but he's not something that pulls me into the game very much. But he does have some interesting cards that will move the baddies around and constantly be attacking you and thus slowing your progression as moving forward. And he kind of wants to keep you hit to drive down that health as you will. Commandroid is my number 6. My number 5 is Kilgaroo. This is a funny one because it's a ninja kangaroo, and who doesn't love that? What a great marriage to have a ninja kangaroo. It's going to be a level 3 also. He's going to be moving around. And he has different attacks. He'll kick you. He'll punch you. He'll use the red die, which is the danger die. So there's a lot of things moving around with Kilgaroo. And you see them quite a bit kind of bouncing around the board. I just think that's hilarious of having a ninja kangaroo. How unique. Because usually you see them as boxers, right? But this guy can kick you, he can punch you, and he can move people around. And he'll come up and just attack you and constantly be a hassle to you of driving down your health. So Kilgaroo by number 5. Liked him quite a bit. Has a pretty funny backstory. And I think is a great addition to the series. My number 4 is Jailbreaker. Now, how can you compare a guy breaking out of jail to a ninja kangaroo, right? The kangaroo is just going to be instantly cooler. But Jailbreaker's kind of neat because I like that aspect of him being like a POW or a war criminal. He's kind of running around the board. Now, he does a lot of things where he'll kind of like dive into people. He'll be chasing you down constantly, trying to attack you or pulling you towards him. He definitely is there for the fight. This guy likes to fight, and he'll be used as somebody who will kind of slow you down a little bit. Now, he's kind of more of a minion type. But he's kind of cool. He's got his handcuffs on. He's kind of running around. So my number 4 is Jailbreak. My number 3 is Wolfpack. I really like the idea of these giant Russian wolves coming after you, and the little standee that they have in the mini is really, really cool looking, and I like him quite a bit, and they look very ferocious. I mean, you think about like guys with guns in these kind of games and the whips and stuff that they would utilize, but man, a wild animal like a Wolfpack coming at you is super scary. Now, as a number 1, level 1, he's the weaker one, but he will spawn quite a bit on the board, come after you with like these little just chip shots that he'll take at you, and you kind of have to defend those off. So not a big worry about it, but if you get surrounded by a lot of these, they definitely can take your health down pretty quickly. Wolfpack is just a really cool visual to have on your table, and it reminds me of like when that dog would just come and take that cheap shot like in Kung Fu, the little kids that will come down. The little animal aspects is really neat in these games. I definitely put Wolfpack in the top tier as just fun to have on the board gaming table. My number 2 is Firebug. Firebug, I just imagine this post-apocalyptic person with a gas mask on, with a flamethrower kind of going after you. Firebug can definitely be a thorn in your side as they surround you and just mount you and pummel you as you go through. And I think the cards associated with Firebug are really fun, how they're moving around the board and constantly coming after you, the sense of dread that the Firebug will get you. I just think it's really fun. It's a very cool thematic feeling that you have in the game and definitely adds some spice to what you're doing. My number 1 villain is the Punks. Now, when I think of Final Fight or River City Ransom or Bad Dudes or Double Dragon or any of those games, I always think of the guy with the mohawk, all right? That was so iconic in the 80s. The idea of this Mohakian punk being in this game is so iconic to me. The only person I can think of that I liked more as a kid was Adora, if you remember him, the Andre the Giant character from Final Fight. But the Punks was something that just jumped up and everything. The Batman games that were beat 'em ups. You know, you had the punks in there with the mohawks. What symbolized being a punk more in the 80s than having a mohawk? Even the guy from Twister had one in the Terminator movies, right? So I think it's just the most iconic character. It's a little bit simpler. He's not a very strong character, but there are a bunch of them, and they're constantly respawning through the cards, which can make them tough and just kind of stand in your path and get these little swipes at you as you go on. So the Punks is the most iconic, best, fun. I'm so glad he's included in the series. So there you have it. That's my favorite bosses and favorite villains, including the game. There's not a whole lot. I wish there had been more. What we have is pretty iconic. I think they did a really good job of bringing the Russians in and kind of the street punks and post-apocalyptics from the 80s. I think all of the bells have been rung that we would expect from the game, but I wish there was more, and I hope there will be more in the future. I think it really spices things up. Now, these villains are very similar. So the level 3 is almost exactly a copy of the level 3 from the other series. I wish there had been a little bit more differentiation, made a list like this a little bit funner, but I definitely thought it would be fun to put out a list like this and go through after my repeated plays of what I like the best and what kind of just brought a little bit of joy to me in the game. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this, please like and subscribe. Otherwise, check out my other videos. Thanks for being here today.